Hi, Corey. How are you doing?
Doing well, thanks.
Good, good. It's great to see you. And as always, appreciate your time. And thank you for agreeing to obviously jump on a quick call and hear your experience of working with Astra's partners. So looking forward to be able to go through that. And I suppose for the benefit of people who may watch this, just gives another opportunity to hear from someone who we've been working together now for 5 months, Corey. I think that potential partners will go through that same process. And again, I won't put any words in your mouth, but you'll talk about it, but maybe it's a particular challenge, considering how Astra's partners could support part of that bigger picture. And now you're 3 months ahead part of that process. So really good to hear your experience from that standpoint. To kick off, would love to know who you are, what Mentavi does, and I suppose, what does growth look like for a business like yours? Just at a high level sort of introduction piece would be great, Corey, please.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in operations and growth, mostly in tech and startups for quite some time. In behavioral healthcare, mental health specifically, about 8 years. This is the third digital health company that I've worked with. And for the last year or so, I've been running all of the growth and marketing for Mentavi Health. Mentavi Health here in the US is a category creator, basically, with our diagnostic evaluation for asynchronous testing via the internet for ADHD, anxiety, depression, and many other conditions. The way that we do it with this asynchronous model is just different than the industry norms. And so it takes a challenger kind of mindset in the conversations when we're looking at business to business partners. This company started 100% as D2C. And as they've evolved since 2018, now about half of our new patients coming in are referrals through healthcare professionals. But most of those are not with formal agreements. And we're interested in increasing those kinds of arrangements with larger health organizations rather than just individual healthcare professionals. And that's why we needed to stand up a very intentional internal business development function. And yeah, so that's a bit of why we were in the market to look for a partner like yourself.
Amazing. No, thank you. Thank you, Corey. Very, very helpful. And I suppose a nice or a bridge to what you've just said there. So before we started working together, how were you generating pipeline? I suppose what wasn't working, and what made you take strategic outbound seriously as a channel? I know you touched upon it as part of that intro, but maybe just a little bit more insights maybe on things you did try or were considering and then made that sort of call to look at strategic outbound more seriously.
Outbound has always been a portion, mix of the B2B growth strategy. To engaging with Astris, we were doing cold outbound campaigns for months. It just takes a lot of time. And I'd rather have my limited, at the time, one business development rep in calls closing sales rather than digging through lists and optimizing campaigns and figuring out language and troubleshooting emails and warming up new. It's a hassle. It's a pain in the butt. And there's no shortage of inbound ads and cold emails that I get for firms like Astra's partners. And there's also a lot of technology options as well, especially as AI develops and grows. But without that human in the loop, that's a risk.
Yeah.
And then you're back to basically doing it yourself anyway, or training a bad intern. So after evaluating a couple dozen firms, we ended up signing with you all.
Amazing. And Corey, anything in particular that you recall that made you go with Astris versus, say, some of the other vendors that you're looking at? Anything in particular that stood out or that sort of gave you that gut feel of, okay, we'll go with Astris partners?
Sure. It was the depth of testimonials like this really that helped. And then, of course, some domain expertise within healthcare. In a nationwide United States footprint for healthcare, doing a lot of digital marketing or outreach, regardless of whether it's D2C or B2B, a heavily regulated industry. A lot of things we can and cannot do, a lot of things we can and cannot say, represent ourselves honestly. And it's important to pick partners that understand that.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely, Corey. Great. Amazing. And Corey, would love to hear your experience of working with us. So that would be the actual onboarding. As you may recall, we obviously ran workshops. We don't really believe in the whole getting you to fill out a form and then we'll launch things on the back of that. We really want to know the ins and outs of the business. And so just love to hear your thoughts on that and general process and if there was anything that sort of surprised you along the way.
Yeah, actually, no surprises. Since we were doing some fairly consistent, sophisticated, and successful campaigns internally, it was helpful to do the onboarding process, the workshops, and just also really impressed with the depth of the questions, the questionnaire, the process
Mm.
itself. And you all were very open to me bringing my entire biz dev team involving customer success so that we had all the voices at the table to help
Yeah.
inform how your outreach got started. You all had some really strong and important questions on what the company is and does. A lot of agencies in your position, I think, are more concerned about getting started rather than getting started right. So that's always that was really impressive.
No, thanks, Corey. No, that is really important for us, and that follows with our sort of internal policy of partnering with or taking one partner a month on the basis that we can spend that, especially that first 2 weeks when we're doing those onboarding workshops, really getting to grips with the offer, the value proposition, the market, and the way that we think about, okay, how are we going to launch? How are we going to expand this? How can we increase total addressable market and continuing that process? And I think it's very important for us as your partner that you're not having to babysit and say, hey, you're doing this, you're doing that. And instead, actually, we're saying, hey, Connor, because you and your team have given us all of this, not saying we know the business better than you, but because you've educated us as part of that process, we can actually think on our own 2 feet and actually bring the ideas and continue and ultimately bring the results, which is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So that's,
The feedback loop has been really, really great. And your team connected via Slack, always extremely responsive. And anytime we have got a tweak or alter something, happens immediately. So that's been fantastic. And an interesting thing that happened as we were getting started, I still had a couple calls with various agencies that I thought I was evaluating, but we ended up signing with you all. But I took the calls anyway, and one of them said, "Hey, are you working with anyone now?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we actually just signed with Asterisk Partners." And the guy was like, "Oh, Kevin from Asterisk, hey, you guys are all set. Let us know if anything if we can help you. Come back, whatever." But I'm not gonna push for another meeting.
No, appreciate that. Appreciate that, Corey. No, thank you for sharing that. Amazing. And then I think, Corey, I suppose the most important part now is, so we've been working together roughly around 5 months now. We've booked around the 50 call mark as it currently stands across mental health and psychiatry practices. I know that you've been involved with a lot of those calls, which is really, I think it's going to be really insightful for this part and getting your thoughts. But I'd love to really hear, because ultimately that's what this bringing us in. And obviously there's the insights and other things that we do as part of our value add and the messaging sentiment of what we're seeing from the market, but actually the quality of the conversations. How have you found them? Are you speaking majority to the right people, the right type of organizations, and any comments on how that has helped move your pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the call quality is really good, and of course, as I mentioned, the feedback loop is really strong. So once we have the calls and go over the recordings and identify where they fit in our tiers as far as our ICPs, the organizations are just getting better and better. The targeting clearer and cleaner. And yeah, so super happy.
Amazing, Corey. And I think just for the benefit of people that will be listening in, the feedback loop from Asterisk's point of view is both from a sort of reporting standpoint of being able to mark like a traffic light system of, is it a great call, a good call, an unqualified call, or some other markers. But also then we highly recommend that if a partner is able to share call recordings, we're able to look at the language that is being used by the individual, by your leads or our partner leads, and therefore that will help us improve our messaging and that sort of whole process. That feedback loop means that when we're then looking at data across the messaging sentiment of the actually outbound messages, the actual feedback from the people or persons who are taking the call, but also hearing inside of what's happening based on what leads are saying and mentioning. So that really forms part of the overall process to ensure that we are continually improving. And that's why as time goes on, things only get better. Infrastructure obviously gets better, targeting gets better, messaging gets better, et cetera, et cetera. I'm really glad you mentioned that, Corey. Thank you for that. And the last question, I suppose, Corey, is if a fellow founder or operator asked you about strategic outbound, and let's obviously keep it in the B2B, or in your case, you've gone D2C and then adding the B2B arm, what would you tell them? Is there anything you'd want them to know or think about before they engage and start doing strategic outreach? And an addition to that question is, would you recommend them to look at and consider Asterisk Partners?
Absolutely. Founders are really familiar with the buy it, build it, outsource it kind of. Now things are shifting so fast with the AI adoption and AI categories. It's gobbling up all the commodities, like as far as motions and jobs and whatnot. What's also been really impressive from the beginning, I remember the part of my qualification for any kind of partner to work with is understanding how they use AI in their processes. There's like a sweet spot, and been really impressed with how your group is always on the edge of safely and smartly deploying those kinds of techniques. In our case, our team is so small, the bandwidth is so limited that we're able to really move a lot faster with an external partner like yourself rather than trying to internalize it 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. And I do think that I was actually at an event yesterday, and that was one of the topics that came up in terms of what's going to happen in this space. Is everyone moving to just AI? And I think the reality is that you still need the human strategy, the focus and execution, and leverage AI as an assistant and allow you to get to that scale when you've identified early stages of message market fit, but that sort of optimization. And I may have even said early part of our conversation, Corey, because I say to a lot of people that relevancy is what gets you from 0 to 1, and personalization, once you've got that relevancy sorted out, personalization is that what adds that sort of small pointers, which is part of that sort of optimization piece. And personalization could mean not just the messaging, but how you are approaching the list building or thinking about that sort of overall strategy, which we're deploying and thinking about in many ways at Asterisk Partners. I guess the final point I just want to note and say is that the success that we have with any of our partnerships is equally down to you, down to how open you have been, turning up for all the calls, giving us feedback. Because if you don't do that, we don't know, right? We don't know how things have gone, how things have been. And I know obviously you're a very busy person, but still, you always showed up. You've always given us more than we need in terms of assets and data, and that's just made our life very easy. So we're very grateful for that and very happy with the partnership and looking forward to continuing this on a long-term basis. Corey, thank you. Thank you once again for joining. Thank you for your trust in Asterisk Partners. And it was great to see you as always.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Corey.